Wednesday. I'm glad to be with you. I'm happy to be with you here. It is the day after the NXT debut on CW. If you were here last night, you're a Matt member. You know all about that. We talked all about it as it went down. Become a member at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Join down below. If you're listening on podcast, hello and welcome in. Did you know there's so much more you can get? You can get it at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast, you should do that. The most interactive pro wrestling show out there. The chat is already bumping. What up to Phil? What up to Nerdy Dude? They were here last night, or some of you were here last night for our NXT on CW watch party. And I don't know. I maybe my expectations were too high. I just throw it out to you guys. I have gently perused the internet since last night to just see what the reaction was, and there were certainly good moments. I just wonder if the big moments were big enough. Did that show deliver? Because I think if I had to guess, with all the promotion it got, and believe me, it got a lot, as it should, I would think they did a nice number last night. I would think they're going to have one of CW's best numbers ever. But I ask you, if you tuned in, did your expectations get met? If you are not a regular watcher of NXT, did you watch the show last night and say, I'll be back next week? You know, I should be watching this more often. Did you get turned off by it? By no means was the show bad. I don't want to say that. But I think it had a lot of hype. I think you knew about Punk and Miz and Bianca and Jade. Were there surprises beyond that? Cora Jade. What appears to be a vignette for Delta. Walking down the street, that Mad Max look, following the interstate to NXT. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit us up in the chat if you're watching after the fact or you're not watching live. Put your comments down below. Hit us up on social media at WrestlingMatt23. Twitter and Instagram at the Matt Camp as well. Next week, they're going to be in the St. Louis area, as I guess they'll probably call it, in a much smaller building. Looking like if they fill it up, it's 2,000. Randy Orton will be there. We know we have a tag team title match. Bianca and Jade will be back next week to team with Kelani Jordan. How will that feel? Are you hyped up for that? If I had to guess right now, see, initially I was about to say, because we talked about it last night in the chat, that the rating next week will be lower. However, two things you have to think about. Number one, in America, the vice presidential debate was last night. As I said while we were watching, I happened to see on X that 2.5 million people were watching on X alone. And sure, you can watch on multiple platforms and all that stuff. The baseball playoffs going on. They'll still be going on next week. There are no debates scheduled for next week. Does that audience carry over? Whatever you want to say. So, just starting from the top, did the debut deliver? I think it was a fine show. Nerdy Dude, there you go. To be honest, looking back, I felt a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. For me personally, the match of the night was Roxanne and Julia. Okay. If you have thoughts, make sure you get them in the chat. You want to get to the front of the line, as always. You want to get your question answered, your thoughts out there. Hit us up with a super chat during the show. It's a great way to support. By the way, you can also support by going to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. We have new colors of shirts up there. Just throwing that out there. You want to support, you do that. You can subscribe for free for the podcast here on YouTube. It's another way to support. So let's go. Let's work backwards. Let's talk about Trick Williams. Properly promoted throughout the week. Lots of media appearances. Promoted throughout the show. The most predictable and the correct thing to do was to crown your top babyface as NXT champion in what they were trying to present as a redemption story. How he lost the title, kind of fluky in that 4-way. I don't think they told a good enough story. You know, he kind of battled with Pete Dunne, and then he was dancing next to Joe Hendry, and he watched the guy who beat him for the title retain over Joe Hendry. I don't know what the tough road back was for Trick Williams. I guess that's my point. If you were trying to tell that story, I don't think the road was tough enough. I also would say that Trick needed adversity. I had no problem. I thought that Ethan Page beating him at Battleground was in play. They didn't want to go in that direction. That's fine. The idea was to be, for Ethan Page, very clearly, a transitional champion to get the title back to Trick on the debut. They did that. That's fine. Trick's over. Trick has still one of the best entrances in wrestling. People get hyped for it. A big crowd makes it better. We've seen that on multiple bigger shows outside of the Performance Center. Everything's good there with Trick. I love that he had the home Chicago Bulls shorts on last night in Chicago, all of that. Ethan plays a great heel. Punk's obviously in the middle of it. He's going to call it down the middle. And, you know, he had his moment with Lexis King. We'll get to that. The match was fine. Page is solid, not spectacular. Unfortunately, I think as we saw towards the end, Trick is just not super polished yet. I don't think his stuff looks crisp enough. I understand that a babyface hitting that big knee, the trick shot, you can hit it on anybody. It's a flash knockout. It can knock anybody out. That's what they're playing. I think it looks a little loose at times, and I'm not saying to hit it for real. And I know there'll be old school wrestlers like, hey, we're not supposed to beat each other up out there. Yup, but you got to make your stuff look crisp. You got to make it look good. That neck breaker thing he does doesn't look great. That's just about tightening up your stuff. He's a main eventer on NXT. He is going to be a star on the main roster. I am not saying he has to work at a ridiculously high level. That's my head went to other main eventers who aren't considered to be these unbelievably gifted, technical, great wrestlers. You got to capture the crowd. Trick has done that. I think the hard part's already done for Trick. But he's got to tighten it up. I thought the finish didn't have enough drama to it. I said to you guys, whether it was yesterday's show during the day or during it last night, I said, Trick's got to have his moment, and it can't be about Punk at all. It's the rub of Punk going, there's the guy. This is kind of me endorsing him. He's the guy. Boom. And then let him have the moment. They made it that way at the end. Forget the finish of the match. Boom. That should have been our lasting image of the last 2 minutes of the show. Now, I will note, and I don't know this for sure, but because CW is broadcast, not cable, much like SmackDown, there is a hard out. There is no overrun. Like Dynamite's got an overrun tonight. It's on cable. Raw's had overruns. SmackDown can now have overruns again. But the hard out, they got to get to the 10 p.m. news on the East Coast here, or wherever, we're done. So they knew that. And instead of the last minute and a half, 2 minutes being about Trick, Punk's still there, and he hits Ethan Page with a GTS. If that happens 2 minutes later, I have no issue with it because they're off the air. Because you're having fun with the crowd. if you've ever been to a Raw, especially back in the day with Austin, the amount of crap and fun and beers and all that stuff that they would do after the show was over, Austin would stay there forever. Beers, give it to the heel. Are you sure? Yeah. Kick, wham, stunner. That's what that was. You delivered what you wanted to for television purposes, which to me was Trick Williams winning. And having that moment on the debut show, here's the guy. This is what you need to remember. And instead, we get a GTS on Ethan Page, which didn't seem all that necessary to do on television. You already beat the guy. That moment was not about CM Punk. That moment should have been all about Trick Williams. And then after the fact, the show goes off the air and you celebrate. And I know Punk got on the mic and he bought everybody pizza. Great. That's all post-show fodder. Page should have stumbled back in the ring to get into the mix of that, and it should have been Trick knee into the GTS, and he stumbles out one more time. And tell me if I'm wrong and they did that again after, sure. But that should have been post-show stuff. There's no Ethan Page Punk feud. Maybe there will be down the road, but that should have been all about Trick. And if you think I'm wrong and say the Punk thing was harmless, okay, fine. I just think if you're trying to make a guy be the guy, it should be about him. I totally understand booking Miz, booking Bianca and Jade, booking Punk on the show. No problem. But it's to put the eyeballs on who's going to be on NXT. I did not like Punk picking those guys off the mat. Like, let them fight up. I'm not saying he should have done the 10 count because he was kind of like, no, I'm not letting this happen. Like, it is kind of BS to me that Page legally used the table on the outside and Punk's like, I'm not letting that count out happen. Well, that's messing with the heel then. And the heel didn't do anything to you. So then it becomes a 2-on-1. Like, that wasn't necessary. Why did that happen? Why can't, so the heel loses his advantage? That's the advantage. He has the championship advantage. I have no problem, and I've talked about this, in a heated match if guys are fighting around the crowd or whatever and you ignore the count. No, they're fighting each other. They've both chosen to do that. Ethan Page has the advantage as the heel champion. Punk not letting him win by countout is BS. Also, it would have been way better for Trick to beat the count. Instead, Punk helped Trick and then brings both guys up to their feet. I didn't need him to be involved. Should he have had the argument with Ethan Page? Absolutely. Page hitting the GTS right in front of him is great heel stuff. Boom. 1-2. Well, you don't hit it as well as I do. Simple as that. But I think Trick got too much help and too much support. And I don't think Punk needed to play as big of a role. If you disagree, I understand. I'm not saying it's the biggest deal in the world. Just how I would have presented Trick a little bit better. He doesn't need help. He's super over. He's the right guy to be the NXT champion. He's the right guy to be the face of the brand. Without a doubt. Then go all the way with that. Let Punk do this. Clap, step away, and then do all the stuff after. Sure, people want to hear from Punk after the show. Sure, they want to get there. That's fine. That's after. The majority of people who saw that should have seen Trick as the lasting image. And that should have been, if you're doing a full-on redemption story, I would have copied exactly what they did with Cody and Brock at SummerSlam last year. Brock whooping Cody, tossing him out of the ring. Cody keeps fighting back up. Cody keeps fighting back up. You want people to get behind Trick because of Trick, not because he's got a babyface referee in there. who pretty much showed he liked him more. Punk said before, I'm calling it down the middle. Then he didn't. He didn't call it down the middle. Don't have him say, I'm calling it down the middle, when he didn't call it down the middle. Why even have him say that if he's not going to let the champion use his advantage when he did nothing wrong? You can use the table on the outside. That is not a disqualification. It is part of the outside of the ring. It's like throwing somebody into a barricade or into a wall, or it's all legal. That's fine. You can do that. It's already set up there. You're not introducing another table into the match. So you had Punk say he's going to call it down the middle, and then he doesn't. Now, he did put a post that Ethan Page up last night saying something about like ruining I'm going to pull it up here. I don't know if we have it. Do we have it by any chance? I'm going to pull it up here just so I can read it to you guys. So Ethan Page put this up last night. He's been known to ruin locker rooms. Didn't know he ruined my life too. And it's a picture of Page with, I believe, his daughter, showing her the title and showing a hug. Pretty much it. So he's blaming Punk. Now, it's been mentioned, I do see Ethan Page as someone who can be an immediate contributor on the main roster. I don't think there's really anything left for him to do in NXT. He walked in, he was NXT champ within 2 months. He's on a NASCAR, he's doing media. His job was to be the heel champ walking into the first show so the babyface face of the brand could beat him and beat a credible heel, someone who could have egg on his face. What is there for Ethan Page to do? I guess they could do a rematch if they want to. But I said it, I'll say it again. I think Ethan Page should be on SmackDown on Friday. And perhaps, if there is a plan for Ethan Page to show up on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown, maybe they wanted to give him a little bit of an out. To say, Punk kind of messed with him. Do you want to give him that fodder? Well, I would have won, but I had two guys going against me. And it's easier, I think, for fans to ignore a babyface helping a babyface beat a heel in some way, shape, or form. I would like to see Ethan Page on SmackDown. I had a whole pitch about that this week in our new segment, Matt Books. I booked AJ Styles' return to SmackDown to get confronted by Ethan Page. Go check it out, thewrestlingnetshow.com. Step one has already happened. Ethan Page lost last night. He is not the NXT champion. I really don't know what else there is for him to do there. And I think he fills a very nice mid-card heel gap on SmackDown. And a great way to get him involved from the jump is have him feuding with a veteran babyface AJ Styles, who is just going to basically, hey, I'm not done yet. I was that close to being champion 3 times this year. Whatever. He had 3 title shots. Whatever you want to say. I know I can do it again. I have another one in me to do it. I know I probably don't have a lot of time left in this ring, but I promise you I will be champion again. And that's your Ethan Page cutoff. Again, more of you. Forget the face that runs the place. Look at this face. This face is the face of Ethan Page, the guy who walked in NXT and took it over in less than 2 months. The guy who CW made sure to put on front and center for all the promotional material and put him on a NASCAR. The guy who NXT had to stack the odds against on Tuesday with their face and CM Punk. Hello, AJ Styles. I'm Ethan Page, and I am the new SmackDown superstar that is stepping in your way. You're not cutting any line. And off we go. More of that at thewrestlingmatchshow.com from a previous episode a couple of days ago. Let's go now back to the beginning of the show. Julia and Roxanne open it up. Excuse me, after Shawn Michaels shows off the new championships. By the way, the black title looks like the UFC title with the way the blocking is. I like the new NXT logo. The blocking, the way it is, I was like, cool, that's the UFC title. I get it, rebranding, no big deal. He shows them off, there we go, and then Triple H comes in, and they do their thing. All right, there's DX, just as you remember them. They hyped, I'm not, whatever. They people got behind it, they popped for Hunter, as you expect them to do. And that went right into Julia and Roxanne. And they have a solid match. And Julia gets a lot of it. And then the run-in happens. And my initial thought was, well, they tease Stephanie Vaquer. It's her. And who cost Julia but a returning Cora Jade. And Roxanne wins. And as I said yesterday, I did not think Roxanne was going to lose. I think it is tough sometimes to book a debuting superstar and put them right into the title picture. Because who is Julia? Who is Julia to the WWE fan? This is the same thing that gets brought up when AEW brings people in. And we don't. It's not about knowing about them, because I think AEW does a good job, even if it's like, ooh, who's this person from Japan? They get presented in a big way, and they don't lose quickly, and they get important victories, and we learn more about them. We've seen Julia beat Chelsea Green and then lose. And lose to a returning Cora Jade, who I know they like. I know they are high on and have been. But now where does that leave us? Well, you hype up Julia and she's already lost. And you open up your first match of this new era with a heel winning because of a returning Cora Jade. Not a returning babyface, a returning heel. And now what do we go into a Cora Jade Julia feud? Who can afford to lose that? Did they potentially fall in love with the idea of Julia and hyping her up, and then now you have to book her after the fact? Because you just made a big deal of Cora Jade coming back. Do you want her to lose? You just hyped up Julia as this international superstar. Do you want her to lose? I said it right away, and they did a backstage where they are teasing Roxanne and Cora coming back together now as a heel team. I think it's the right move. And there can be that tension of Roxanne's the champion. They can get to that at some point. They are legitimately great friends outside of the ring. I am not the biggest Cora Jade fan. This and a lot of hand acting, and her and Roxanne are the same character. They're exactly the same. Roxanne just took on Cora's attributes after Cora turned on Roxanne. So maybe putting them together well. But it also is the same character that Fatal Attraction is. We're better than you, get away from me. A lot of this. You want the female heel character in NXT, it's this. That is the basis for every female heel character in NXT. Get away from me. Come here. No, back it up. That's it. Then that can work. People can hate Roxanne or hate Cora or not like Fatal Attraction, but it's a lot of, you're beneath me. Everybody's beneath every heel, top heel, presented, consistently booked heel. Every female heel is just, you're beneath me. Fatal influence. Did I say fatal influence? Fatal influence, toxic attraction, fatal influence. They repeated the same idea. Oh, Love Fro brought up, yes, you got to go spooky sometimes. That's another way to turn. Right. It's, I'm better than you. It's this, or female heel number 1 in NXT. Female heel number 2. And that's it. You just get put into one of those 2 spots. Am I missing any of the NXT characters? Oh, yeah. Well, I know Nerdy Dude brings up, he says yeehaw. Tom said, undermine Julie losing because if Stephanie Vaquer is getting the next shot, you've told fans that there's doubt in new superstar beating everyone and winning the title. Sure. I get that. That's fair, Tom. Now you're saying it's not a given. I didn't think maybe that's what I didn't think it was a given last night. I didn't think we were getting babyface champions to end the night. I didn't expect that. I figured there would be something. I just wonder where this leaves Julia. Franklin just said Perez main roster next year. Man, there's a lot of questions about that. I'm not there yet. I don't think her promos are that good. I would like to see what her and Cora are as a tandem. And there might be something to that. There might be something to building them up. And perhaps if you keep the women's tag team titles on 3 brands, maybe they upset Jade and Bianca down the road. I'll go one further. Maybe there's some miscommunication between Jade and Bianca, and we get going on that feud. Just saying. I'll go to a positive now. Because I get it. I've griped. We get Fatal Influence taking on Jada and Lola, who are very much can they coexist? You need me, no, you need me, no, you need me. 2 women who began as heels that have just kind of morphed into baby faces. A lot of posterior-based offense from that team. There was the stack up in the corner and sit on them, and then there was the run into the corner and squish them with the butt. A lot of ass offense last night. And then Jada bails on her, so I guess she's going back to being a heel. I've had enough. Even though she's getting cheered and people like her, and I think she's a heck of a prospect down there and has picked up a lot. Nope. She's had enough. And then Fatal Attraction win, influence, whatever. Toxic, Fatal Attraction, influence. They win. And they call out Kelani. And as soon as she said, I went, oh, I know who's coming out. And we get Bianca and Jade. And the 3 of them take them out. And I thought of everything that happened last night, including main roster people, that was the best thing they did. A great example. I have a lot of praise for this. When you do this stuff, when you have these debuts, and you're going to bring in main roster talent, they're going to be part of the show. You want the eyeballs that are being brought in by big talent like Bianca and Jade to now see someone like Kelani Jordan. And see, who's that? And next week, now she gets to tag with them. That's a great use of the over main roster talent to give Kelani Jordan a rub. I thought that was perfectly done. I thought that was the best use of main roster talent. I think it builds to next week the right way. You'll set up whoever Jordan's next opponent is going to be for the Women's North American Championship, and you get some more eyeballs on her. And I found myself more interested in her. And as I was talking about last night on the live stream, I had heard from the jump, before she was on Level Up, pay attention to her. And I made a point to watch her stuff on Level. And it's clear there's something here. She's someone I think they're doing a good job with. She's working a good amount. I like that they put her on commentary, because that's throwing you in the deep end. For years, that was kind of an unofficial, hey, how do you handle yourself? Well, we're going to put you on commentary, and you're going to have someone who is going to guide you, which is the job of Vic Joseph or any babyface play-by-play announcer. Let's work them in. Here's a chance to kind of react to the match. There are moments where, yeah, you're going to ask a certain question, but that's also like thinking on the fly and what's going on in the match. And, can you show appreciation? Can you kind of cut a promo on your opponent? And you're going to have probably, the heel-ish Booker T, not really, but understanding of heels, he's going to push on her. And then, and what they've done that with her. They see something in her. That is how you get better. Backstage promos, live promos, on commentary, as much as that is possible. Like, I think she's further ahead than Trick in the ring, just based on what I've seen. I'm not saying she's anywhere near a finished product, but you can see it. And I think people have taken to her, and I think she is a fun wrestler, and I think she has a magnetism to her. And I think last night was a great way, because she hasn't really gotten any major rubs in that way. Like maybe in a natty thing or something I'm missing. But hey, here's her with two of our biggest stars. And it'll be a great, you can cut a promo with her next week with them. And I know they did it with Sarah last night after, on social media. They did a very good job with her. I thought that was the best thing on the show in terms of getting something done the right way. You could say the Trick thing was bigger. Bigger, yes. In terms of being productive, I think that was the most productive thing on the show. Now, speaking of main roster talent, Miz TV was announced with Tony D'Angelo and Obafemi. And I know I have had plenty to say about the D'Angelo family. As performers, as talent, I think they're all great. I am a big fan across the board. I think they all have a lot of talent. I think they have taken what has been given to them and executed it well. I think we see them every week. I think they've had a chance to flesh out their characters, and they've done a good job. 100%, I take none of that back. What they've been handed, they have done well with. They are a small group of people who can believably present themselves on television within their character. We've seen enough of those random awful back, oh my God, I hated her from the tryout, or Ashanta the Adonis is hitting on me. Well, that stuff's garbage. There's a lot of bad acting in that. The D'Angelo family hits their marks on all that stuff. However, I had asked, I think even before, hey, let's see the D'Angelo. When Miz got announced, that was the first thing I said. I want to see Tony D'Angelo mix it up with a main roster person. Maybe Miz TV would work. There you go. Tony D, Obafemi, The Miz. Now, The Miz last night, coming off a heel turn, they could have played into that more, and they didn't. Why? It was not about him last night. If You want to know why I always praise Miz? Watch last night. Watch him walk out there after a heel turn, after a big Monday Night Raw, and take a back seat to two guys that NXT has a lot of faith in. Watch Miz just direct traffic. Miz TV was not about Miz, was not about Miz setting up a match with Oba or setting up a match with Tony D'Angelo. Miz was there to be the traffic cop. Miz was there to do that right there. Two-time Grand Slammer, two-time WWE champion, one of the deepest resumes, guy's been around forever. And there, in this moment, and I'll go backwards in a second. Right here, what did he do? He hyped up this match. Miz does not, people would say no to that. Let me tell you that right now. There would be people that would be presented what Miz was, and that's why am I hyping up these guys? What about me? No. You ask Miz to handle something up here on the card, here on the card, here on the card. Babyface, heel, comedy, celebrity, media appearance, reality show. No problem. Handles it. Miz, can you go to NXT and help with these two young guys? You got it. And it's funny because I think Miz could have jumped in a little bit more. They're doing this story of Tony D'Angelo, the Don of NXT. The guy who people are afraid of. The guy who will hang you by your ankles over a bridge or dispose of Pretty Deadly. They're doing this underdog story where it's him in Rocky 4 or Rocky 3 or both, because they've now mixed up the lines of down on his luck. And he is someone who needs to battle back, Rocky Balboa, whatever. And he didn't get over last night. He wasn't where he should be last night. He was out of the comfort zone of Florida. And he got whatted, and he tried to lean into the what's. And instead, we see him kind of lose his way. Instead, we kind of see him get exposed in front of a much bigger crowd. He hasn't done those promos like that. Not in front of a big crowd. It just hasn't happened. And it's not a bad thing. It's still, okay, back to this, because I had somebody comment on this. You don't watch the right way. It's developmental. That is someone who has not seen enough of my stuff. I say it's developmental all the time. All the time. And last night, Tony had a rough night. And you could chalk it up to one bad night. You could chalk it up to not connecting with the crowd, not handling the crowd was with Oba. The crowd was with Oba from the minute he walked out. When they whatted Tony, they hoo every time Oba said something. I'm mad at myself for putting out that video from a couple months ago and not putting Oba on my top 5 of people who are going to come out of NXT and kill it. And honestly, he's even gotten better since then. Supremely confident. Outstanding presence in the ring. The work will still continue to come, but he knows how to work as a big guy. And I think he'll only get better the more he works. But he sat there last night, and he was just better than Tony. And they've now made Tony this guy who's doubting himself. And it doesn't fit the character. And now I'm very confused about this. And it does get to the point I'm seeing a lot of people bring it up. Did the D'Angelo Don gimmick face some tough reality last night? I think Tony's really good. He's a mafia boss on TV. I think Luca Crisafino has thrown himself into his gimmick. And he's a wrestling lawyer. Stacks might be in the best spot of anybody because he's just kind of an he can that'll be far easier to transition out of than what these two other guys have to deal with. A wrestling lawyer who kind of dresses like a lawyer, and then Tony, who's the Don, and now we're doubting himself, and like it's hard to make him an underdog. And then on top of that, the gimmick is so it's not main roster friendly. You can't have Roman Reigns show up with 3 cars and face off against Cody Rhodes on a football field and make it be about presence and aura and all that, and then tell me that Tony D'Angelo is going to walk up to one of those guys and they're going to take him seriously. It is, Franklin just said, I've been around modern-day mob guys. Be careful, buddy. And the D'Angelo group does not reflect modern-day mob guys. No, it is a caricature. It is every caricature of mob people. And it was, here's the thing, it's a fun gimmick. It's not a serious gimmick. It's presented by the group as serious. They act seriously. All along, I think people have had fun with it. They've been almost in on the ridiculousness of it. That's why I think people like it. But now you want me to not kind of laugh along with it. Now you want me to go, oh, he's an underdog. Isn't this the guy who messed with people? He can't do that to Obafemi all of a sudden now? Now let's play it straight. Isn't he kind of outing himself? If he's a Don and he has his power and, we're going to take care of the thing with the guy. Now he's not that? Now he doesn't have that power? Now that confidence is gone? And by the way, if you want to point Soprano, spoilers ahead, to Tony Soprano having his struggles on the show and going to therapy, and if I remember, and this is going back, and I watch all Soprano, like there's something where like he gets back into it and he beats people up, or he and that gets his confidence back. All right, you can if you want to point to that, I'm okay. But I think the fact that we've all been in on the joke. You can be in on the joke. But when you try to make me not be in on the joke, and it's run its course. Tom Green just said, Tony and Luca have gimmicks that guys used to try out on the Largo loop, the Florida loop, as he's getting to, before they got confidence to flesh something different out on TV. That's the issue with taping TV in the same venue in a week. I say it all the time. You're in the same place. Everybody's in on it. It's the same 300-400 people every week that show up in that building, and they give you a lively crowd, and that's fine. But you've taken it out of there now. And that's what we got last night. And it, once again, it was one time. We're going to see them next week. Tony can work. Let me get that straight. Tony is a very good wrestler. He was an amateur wrestler. He was an amateur wrestler. He can work. It's just going to be tough to evolve from this character. Dare I say, he's going to have to go straight. Oh, he's out of the game. He went straight. Oh, whoa. You're never out of the game. You know, and you can play into that down the road. Tony made some promises when he was still in the game, when he wasn't legit. Now it's going to come back to get him. Tony's got to go legit. He's got to get out like De Niro and analyze this and that. Yeah, I have faith that he can pull that off, but a hole was dug a little bit last night. On the flip side, Oba was fantastic. Oba is a home run. He keeps his stuff together. He's going to be great. Very believable in everything he does. I love his presentation. He's already got the crowd chanting for him. We can already look forward to Oba and Bronson Reed. We can always look for. We're going to look forward to Oba against some big guys. A couple comments here before we wrap it up. Nerd Dude, and there's a difference for me personally, Matt. Chase U might be a comedy gimmick, but they always deliver in the ring. And when it comes to storytelling, there's another one, though. I think they're going to hit a ceiling. But at least they're comedy babyface. You know that, once again, you're in on the joke. You can tell that story because NXT has been for so long in its own bubble, its own universe. It's why I compare it to Lucha Underground. You know, I know it's not the same, but it's contained in that box. It's hard to take some of that stuff within that. What you have to suspend your disbelief. Tony's a mob guy. Chase U actually runs a college. You can have Alpha Academy, and it's very broad. Gable can be a coach. He doesn't actually have a school. They don't have a classroom. And you know what? There's room for comedy stuff. And maybe there is room for Chase U as a comedy whatever on the main route. Maybe. But I don't think that the D'Angelo family has a high ceiling in the gimmicks that they have. And I don't want that to fail. I like all four of them. I absolutely liked talking and helping Tony when things were just getting going with 2.0, and he was willing to listen, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. I am a fan of him. I think it's Joe. I'm a fan of Joe. I believe that's his real name. I like that guy a lot. I've heard nothing but good things about how hard Stacks works. You want to here? I'll give you a good example. Stacks, go look at his social media. He's dating Ariana Grace. They do fun stuff all the time on their social. They're always working. They're always coming up with stuff. They're taking improv. That's a guy and a woman who want to make it and will do anything they can. She's fantastic already. She's got it in her genes. She's already good. He and her do a lot of fun stuff on their own. They want to show their range. They have range. They want to show they can handle things. They can go out and do stuff on their own. They can make Rizzo, she was a track star at NC. She's taken on this. I've seen some good things from her. Luca Crisafino, before anybody knew who he was on NXT, was doing gimmicks where he would chime in on things that went wrong. And I can come represent you. He had business cards for when he was working the local house shows. He had fantastic theme music that sounded like the People's Court. I like that he dove into it. William Regal has said this for years. If you want to get good at this, go do something you're not comfortable with and make that work and throw yourself into it. That's how you will get better in wrestling, by doing stuff that doesn't feel comfortable. And sometimes you have to do that because the booking is crap. And sometimes you have to do that because it's part of the job. But if you can handle the stuff that is out of your comfort zone, whether it's good and it's just not something you would expect to do, or it's just bad booking and you found a way to handle it, I can't tell you how many people have kept a job in that place because they know how to deliver no matter what. whether the stuff is good or the writing is bad or you have to promote crap or like I said, Miz, you hand him something, he's going to take care of it. He's going to make the most of it. It doesn't always hit, but it's not going to be for lack of effort. I think all 4 of them in the group will give you all the effort you want. I think they're well-liked. I think it's why they are booked as much as they are. I just hope that they don't get pigeonholed in this gimmick because I am worried about where it can go. Wentz and Wesley had a great match last night. They ripped it up. Right guy won, as you'd expect. And we'll see what happens next week. It's not going to feel as big. It's not going to look as big. Also, Booker T did mention that he heard that they ripped the whole place down. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, and we will see what that PC looks like in a couple of weeks. That's pretty much it, though, today. I thought we might get some breaking news. We will not. Doesn't seem like it, but there's a lot of rumors going on about AEW tonight and what they're going to announce. 5th anniversary show. I remember where I was 5 years today. I was in Stanford, then I was in Orlando. Maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Enjoy the 5th anniversary of Dynamite. We'll be back tomorrow to talk all about it. Please subscribe to thewrestlingmatshow.com. Go to YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, come on over. We have so much more for you. Become a Matt member. If you're a Matt member now, you can go back and watch other Matt member videos you might have missed. I did 2 parts of Mr. McMahon React documentary stuff. Very deep, very honest. You can go check that out. $2.99 a month, that's the base level. $6.99 a month, get you the members-only videos. We watched NXT last night. And the main event level at $24.99 a month, 30-minute Zoom. We'll be setting up another private pass watch-along soon. So make sure you get in on that, whether you're watching live, watching after the fact, listening on the podcast. Subscribe wherever you get the show, whether it be here on YouTube. Subscribe where you get your podcasts. And go over to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Go get your Wrestling Mat merch. We got more shirts. By the way, if you're a member, you get discounts. So head over to the membership tab and check all of that out. Thank you, all of you, for joining me today. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about wrestling even more right here on The Wrestling